Welcome to In the News for Friday, May 28th. My name is Brett Burney from appsandlaw.com.
And this is Jeff Richardson from iPhone JD.
Jeff, it is good to talk with you. And the first question out of my mouth is, how do you like that new iPad?
I tell you what, it's been great. I mentioned this in my post today that I posted my review of it this past Monday.
Yes.
And
yes.
It was a glowing review, which you would expect. Of course, I'm going to love the shiny new thing. But since then, I've been using it all week long, through work. I've had a crazy busy day at work. I've been filing appellate briefs and trial court stuff and looking through exhibits. And it is just so nice. In fact, when I wrote the review on Monday, I really, one of the first things I talked about was how beautiful the screen is. And it is a beautiful screen. And you especially appreciate it when you're looking at content that is made for 4K, HDR, Dolby, when you're looking at like a movie video or even just a home video that you took with your iPhone, it looks beautiful. And that's been great. And I totally enjoyed that last weekend when I was using it. But this week, I've been working. I haven't been watching, feature films reported in 4K.
Right.
And what I've noticed, of course, I still notice the screen looks beautiful and very rich and it's a much nicer experience, but the speed has really been nice. And I feel silly saying it because of course, every new iPhone is faster. Of course, every new iPad is faster. But and I also realize that perhaps once I get past the honeymoon period, then I won't notice it as much. But I will say this week, I am amazed. Things that I don't even think of as being slow on my prior iPad, they're just so fast and so smooth. And I just feel like I'm going, and the iPad's totally keeping up with me. And it's been wonderful. Yeah.
I love it because again, folks that are starting to listen to us now, which we're so thrilled that all of the listeners and folks watching us on YouTube, thank you. But if they'll see the last episode we did, which is a week ago from today, the iPad arrived while we were recording. So I've been waiting all week. I read your review and I've been waiting all week to ask you about it. But the first thing, quickly to your point about the speed, Jeff, the phrase that came to my mind right when I started reading your review here was buttery smooth.
Yeah.
I love that idea. It's like everything that you tap and you touch, and just like you said, people know we talk fast, right? We work fast, you and I, and it's great that what you just said, the iPad can keep up with you, and that's a pretty big deal for people that are looking for something like that.
Yeah, just to pause on that, for example, just to give you concrete examples, in PDF Expert, I usually have a lot of different tabs open with different documents that I'm working for, my brief and an opponent's brief and a document and part of the record. And it is just so fast and smooth, switching back and forth between tabs. And it's not like I really thought it was slow before, but now I'm like, wow, I would never want to go back once I have this. And another one is switching between applications is just so quickly. You're switching between, Westlaw in the Safari browser and then back to Good Notes and PDF Expert and email. And it's just also quick and fast. It really, and again, I'm not going to say you can't be productive with a slower iPad, but I will say that when you have, this luxury, it's really nice. It's really nice.
And you can't go back. I kind of liken what you're saying to, you and I throughout the years, we've used computers, and when you upgrade the RAM on your computer, or when we went from a regular hard drive to a solid state drive, just the speed that I remember as, through my different computers over my career, I'm like, whoa, this just makes me so much more productive. And I can just imagine, because I don't have the new iPad yet, but I can imagine that was some of what was going through your head. It's like, wow, this is so much better. It's like it's so much more responsive. And I like that. I want my tools to be responsive that way. So it was just great to read about that.
Yeah, it's been great.
The other thing I loved, and you mentioned this, but I want to go back to it, is I didn't think about this from, to a certain extent, we do the entertainment and we watch the movies. But what you were talking about in here, Jeff, where was it? Like, you had done some videos, which I know you talked about before, that you had recorded on your iPhone 12, which the cameras are amazing on that.
Yeah.
But I think you said in here you didn't realize how amazing the recording was until you had a screen that could show you how amazing those recordings were.
Absolutely.
I love that you put that in there.
The iPhone 12 that came out last fall can record in 4K. The iPhone 12 Pro, which is what I'm using, I don't have the super big, I don't have the Max model, just the regular size model, but
Same
both
here.
the Max and the regular size 12 Pro can record in 4K 60 frames per second. And those are just a lot of numbers. But what does it mean in reality? When you watch, a video of my daughter competing in a track and field event that's recorded in 4K 60 frames per second, it's lifelike. And I know that there are people out there that have televisions that can show all that stuff, and if you got the right content, it looks great. But in a well-lit thing like recording outside, a home video of your kids doing something really cool. In the past, I have appreciated how really good it looked on the iPhone screen itself, but the iPhone screen is obviously only so big. The huge iPad, especially this 12.9 one, I'm like, oh my goodness, this is amazing. And so I did put that line in my post earlier this week that I wish I could go back in time to like when my kids were really little and record all that stuff in 4K 60 frames per second. But at least I recorded that stuff in high definition when they were little, so at least it looks pretty good. But yeah, that's a great way to appreciate the new screen, is with content you record with your new iPhone.
I just loved the whole thing where you were talking about the fact that it is so much more responsive along with the video, and you do a good job, as you always do, Jeff, about talking. Is this something that lawyers absolutely need? Well, it could depend, right? I mean, surely you're not maybe doing the photos, and maybe sometimes you're doing the videos, but it is something to keep in mind from that responsiveness aspect. And frankly, just the fact that the screen is a little bit brighter, the blacks are a little bit blacker, the colors are a little bit more vibrant. And if it's time for you to upgrade, just like you said, you didn't upgrade last year when that iPad Pro came out. It was sort of like a minimal upgrade. Yeah. And so for folks that are maybe looking at, they didn't upgrade the last 2 or 3 generations of the iPad, this could be something I would say you might want to look into.
It is. And that's the choice for lawyers now, because the iPad Air that came out last year is also really good.
Yeah.
It has that same smaller bezel. And so it is a very solid option for an attorney to consider. If you want to spend a couple $100 more, the iPad Pro, especially this larger model, the 12.9 inch, it really is a nice upgrade. And so, you just decide, what works in your life. I mean, when I'm getting my work done in my office, I mean, the computer that I use is just a Dell that's issued by my firm, which is nothing fancy. The screen that I use is just a generic Dell monitor that's nothing special. I mean, I guess it's not a CRT2, but other than that, it's nothing special to it, and it's fine. And I get my work done. But when I use the iPad, right next to me with the computer, it's just such a nice experience. So I really like it. I mean, I will tell you though, attorneys trying to decide which iPad should they get, they know it's ready. When you decide between the Air and the iPad Pro, of course, price is something to consider. And the things that we've just been talking about, the screen and the speed is something to consider. But don't forget, even though this is old news, don't forget that, if you think that you can use a larger 12.9 inch, if you think you can get used to it, I strongly encourage people to take a look at it. And I will tell you, when I first, and it's been, I think the 12.9 inch iPad originally came out, the first generation, in 2015 or something. It's been a long time.
Something like that. Right.
When I first started using it, I still remember that. And I remember that for that first week or so, I thought to myself, gosh, this is so big. Do I really want to carry around something that seems so much bigger? But I will just tell you from my experience, you get used to it and you don't notice it from a cumbersome state. It's no longer just seems cumbersome, but having your exhibits and your documents and everything else so big on that big screen, I find I really find it helps my practice, my law practice a lot. So, and if you want the bigger screen, you have to get the Pro. So when folks are making their decision, when it's time to upgrade, of course, all the features of the iPad Pro are very nice, but frankly, the one thing that hasn't changed, just the larger screen, gosh, I think that's the real reason to get it. So that's just one person's opinion.
You've always been good. You've always been good at saying that. Anytime we've presented together, you've always talked about, because people are like, well, I don't know if I want that big. It's like carrying around, I think you called it like a cafeteria tray or something.
That's what I called it last week.
But again, the way I tell people, I remember a few years ago, Jeff, I would tell people, it's great to have 2 monitors, right? And they would look at me like, oh my goodness, that's too much. Why do you need two monitors? And I look at them and I say, well, if you're sitting at your desk, you don't work in your desk area like in a 1 foot by 1 foot little square, right? You spread things out on your desk. Well, your desk today is your monitors, right? That's like your digital real estate. And I think it's just kind of the same thing. I totally agree with you. I don't have the 12.9 inch, but that's definitely what I'm going to be purchasing next.
Yeah. In fact, since you talk about monitors, I'll mention as a side note, and as you know, Brett, I'm doing this right now, but I was listening to the most recent episode of the Mac Power Users podcast, which is a great podcast. Yeah. Our friend David Sparks, who's an attorney in California, is one of the co-hosts. And on their most recent episode, they interviewed a Harvard professor, actually. But one of the things he talked about was how if you have an iPad right next to your Mac, you can use a feature on the Mac called Sidecar, where the iPad becomes a second monitor. So you're not using the iPad screen to do iPad stuff. You're using it to have some of your Mac windows on your iPad and some of your Mac windows on the computer screen. Nice. And it's an interesting way that if you want a second monitor in a pinch, just use your iPad. And of course, then if you have the 12.9 inch iPad, then that second monitor is even bigger. I'm literally using it as we're talking to each other right now, and it works really well. So that's a great. For attorneys that use Zoom a lot, that episode of Mac Power Users has great advice from what is his name there, Teddy
Savroranos.
It was an
I like the title,
episode.
Zoom Jiu-Jitsu. Come on, that's great.
That was a great episode, and I learned tips from listening to that I may incorporate
that's on my list.
My next court hearing and stuff like that. So great episode.
That's great. Okay, so a couple of things quickly, because I know it's the new iPad, but two more things quickly. I just wanted to talk about Center Stage. Now, you did a good job of talking about the Center Stage. This is it's not really a new camera. It's a widescreen camera, right? That's facing you on the iPad. But then Apple did some digital jujitsu of their own in helping it move the camera around. In fact, you linked to a great story here where, our friend over at Mac Stories, it's Federico, I think, where he did a great job of putting in some GIFs to kind of show how that worked. Now, it sounds like you did a little bit. I think you were talking about you did some with your son. This is not your son. This is Federico. But you were talking about how, it's neat, it's kind of nifty, but you've always been of the mind that it's maybe not something that you're going to be using as a legal professional many times.
Yeah, I mean, maybe not for work video conferences because I'm going to be sitting still and just staring straight at the camera. But for home stuff, a lot. And it's really interesting technology. There's another article that I linked to today from one of their developers of the Halide or Halide, how you pronounce it, app, which is interesting because the front-facing camera on this iPad Pro, it's very wide. It's a very wide screen, wide-angle camera, and wide-angle cameras are nothing new. People have been using them for decades, and that when you get to the corners, traditionally things get very skewed, but Apple, through software, is making it so that even when the virtual, the crop field, even as people are moving to the corners, it's just adjusting, quickly and seamlessly using that M1 super fast processor to adjust it so that people don't look like their heads are suddenly, like, how like you're in a funhouse mirror, your head is elongated or stretched. And so just from a technological standpoint, how Apple is using a very wide space and then cropping in and adjusting it so that it just looks right is interesting. When you're using the new iPad Pro, there's a button on the screen when you're using the front-facing camera. There's a button that you can tap that switches between what I would call like a normal mode and the widescreen mode. And if you use an iPhone, that you can switch between 1x and 2x, and it literally switches the cameras. On the iPad Pro, it looks like you're switching cameras, but it's all the same camera. It's just that Apple uses so many megapixels on its wide angle camera that it can crop without it looking, sometimes when you crop, you lose some quality, but it's a good enough camera that you can crop without losing quality. So it really works well. It's nicely done. And, kudos to Apple for doing that. And again, I really expect to see this in future Mac tops and iMacs and everything else.
I totally hear what you're saying on the Center Stage. It's certainly not something if, a lot of us in professional settings are kind of sitting in front and kind of looking at it. But as I watched this, especially this from Federico, it just made me think, I work with a lot of folks that are trial lawyers, right? Or they're in front of a hearing. And today, if we're doing that remotely, something like this could be a little bit more interactive as opposed to just sitting and looking, right? I mean, because I know a lot of trial lawyers do like to walk around a little bit, just so that you're a little more, I guess, intimate with talking with the, your audience, whether it's a jury or a judge or even just your client. And I'm just excited to see what this is going to turn into, because there were some stories you linked to a couple too that now Zoom is now integrating some of these capacities with the center stage. So it's definitely going to trickle down, just the fact that you have a 12.9-inch iPad, because I think you have to have that bigger one, I think, right? In order to get access to some of these features on there. But it's just going to be interesting for me to see how that's going to continue to evolve. And I was pretty excited to see all that.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about that. That's really interesting. Of course, now courts are starting to open again now that we're all getting vaccinated. But if you were an attorney doing an opening statement or a closing argument remotely using the iPad, this would actually be a nice feature that you could sort of walk back and forth, maybe between like a traditional exhibit board or something like that. And to have the camera following you, it would give your presentation a very professional feel, as if you had hired somebody to hold a camera and follow you around. That's an interesting thought.
So when I get my new iPad Pro, we're gonna have to both use that.
Just walk back and forth. We'll get dizzy.
So quickly on another thing, this is that Halid. I don't know exactly how to say the name of it, but you linked to this story, which I had seen as well. And by the way, I just want to talk. We've been talking about the front-facing camera just real quick. This post goes into a little bit more about the back camera, and he talks about this is the superpower here, that it basically, as he says here, the iPad basically comes with a microscope. I had not thought about this. He says that the camera on the iPhone can't get as close to things as what the iPad he's a professional photographer. He understands this much better than I do. But some of these pictures, Jeff, just blew me away that you could take this right close enough.
And I wonder why, Brett, why would Apple think that you want, it's all a question of how close you can be and still stay in focus, right? It's like a macro lens.
Right.
I actually don't understand why would Apple think that you should have more of a macro lens on an iPad than on an iPhone. Yeah. I don't know. I guess there's a reason.
I don't know, Jeff.
Or maybe it's going to come to the iPhone this fall. Who knows? It's interesting.
Right. And this gentleman, he explains this is one of the developers, or he's a system engineer at this, for this camera app. Yeah, and he does a good job. he explains just a little bit in there that it just, whatever it is with the angle or something, again, stuff that I just don't understand. But anyway, that was just amazing to me. Like, something. And in fact, what I loved about it is that he stumbled upon this accidentally. Where does he say it here? He said, I found out about this when I was resting the iPad in my lap, and he noticed the camera was actually focusing perfectly on his pant leg. And I'm like, because otherwise he may not have been able to find that. Somebody would have stumbled on this a little bit, but he, as a professional photographer, kind of understood how incredible and important that was.
I'll say one last thing about this, which has a law angle to it. One of the pictures in this page that you're looking at has a close-up of his fingertip, and he is showing that you can actually see the ridges on his fingertip. Now, I will note that I've actually seen reports in the news. There was one in the last week or two, I forget if it was on Lowering the Bar or what website, of a criminal who had posted something with his finger in it, and the police, and the picture that you're showing right now, you could actually see the fingerprint. And so police know how to get a fingerprint from a photograph like that. So if Sebastian was a criminal, the police could use the picture that's on that webpage to say, aha, now we've identified him as being at the crime scene of such and such. So that's just sort of funny.
So if you held the bloody knife, don't take a picture of your fingerprints and post it on the web.
Good advice for all podcast listeners.
Last thing, because I know people are like, okay, you're talking so much about the iPad, but it's such a big deal. The last thing that you did point out to, and I just wanted to let people know, was that now version 14.6, which is sort of an incremental update that just came out for your iPhone and iPad. If you haven't updated, I'm a big proponent of updating when these updates come up, because there's some great stuff in here, but I always look kind of at the bottom, bug fixes, right? Security updates. I tell people you can maybe wait a few days if you want, folks like me and Jeff to download it first and see if there's any problems, but don't wait too long on this. But it does come in with the lossless audio, the Apple Card family, and the Apple Podcast subscription support, which I thought, hey, that might be something useful for us. So if folks are interested.
No, I don't think we have any plans to charge a subscription for this. So
no, we don't. I'm just saying, if you want to buy us a cup of coffee or something like that.
Exactly. Won't be turned down.
Exactly. There's some other good stuff on here too, and I just wanted to point that out.
Yeah.
On there. Okay. So the second thing I wanted to talk about was you linked to this, and I had seen this because it is a nifty little app. In fact, let me bring this up here that you had pointed it out to. It's from a company called FlexiBits, right? Which some of the listeners may know that makes Fantastical, which you've talked about. And we both know, of course, David Sparks is a huge fan of Fantastical. I have not subscribed to Fantastical yet, but I have been thinking about it, Jeff. And what they just did, yesterday or 2 days ago, is probably going to put me over the top. They make a separate app. In fact, let me just open it up here. They make a separate app that is called CardHop, which is like a business card, or it's actually like a contacts app. And people always tell me, well, why do I need a different contacts app? I've already got a contacts app in there. Well, actually, I made a video on this on my blog. Let me just pull it up real quick. appsandlaw.com, where you could go in, and this was a few weeks ago, so it doesn't have all the the brand new features in this, but it goes in and it just shows you exactly how you can use this. It's got great features of like showing a business card that people can scan. There's a great little search bar that you can put in there that it parses out. You can add notes very quickly. It really is fantastic. And to me, it's so much easier than pulling up your contacts app and saying, hey, let me get your phone number. And then they got to tap in the right place and do it. You can just start typing all of it. So I was thrilled to see that they improved this. And David Sparks did a great job. You linked to this comment that he made on CardHop 2.0, which now, again, you can take a picture of a business card. It's like a business card scanner, which many of us will look at. Let me turn that down so you'll see as David goes in and talks about this here. But you can scan a business card and it automatically adds to your contacts. There's been many apps like this, Jeff, that you've been able to scan business cards, but I love the fact that it builds it right in here and that you can see it happen. And it does a very good job of bringing that in. And then there's a few other things that they added, like adding some additional images to CardHop, and it now synchronizes or links or integrates a little bit better even into Fantastical. Do you have Fantastical, Jeff? Do you use that?
I do. Fantastical is the app that I use for my calendar. And I do use the premium version. It's got some extra things and, bells and whistles. Some of it is as small as just like putting the weather forecast on your calendar. So when I'm looking up to what am I doing next Tuesday? Not only can I see my calendar, but I can also see it's going to rain. And so I can think about, I'm traveling across town to the deposition. It's going to be wet. But and it's got some other nice features, like you can import calendars. So just for example, they have sports calendars you can import. I live in New Orleans and I'm a fan of the football New Orleans Saints. So with one button, I can have all of the Saints games on my calendar just by importing that Saints calendar from Fantastical. But on CardHop, it's an interesting, I feel like I don't, although the calendar is something, it's a very important part of my law practice, managing that. And contacts are important. I don't feel like I use the contacts app enough to take advantage of CardHop. But if you do, if you're listening to this and you really should check it out, because you could try it for free and then get access to the more premium features. It gives you a natural language search so that you can get at more information more quickly. I see that David Sparks mentioned that in this 2.0 version, it even incorporates support for organizational structures. So not only can you put that, John Smith works for Acme, but that he is the boss of so-and-so, or I guess you could use that for family members too, like a little family tree. So those are some interesting power features. And again, it all works on top of the regular Apple database. So you can go back to the normal contacts app if you want to. It's just sort of adding extra features on top of it. So I love that they're doing this app. And right now, I don't feel like it's for me, but who knows? That may change in 6 months. And what's nice is that if you do pay, as I do, for the subscription for Fantastical, now you get all the CardHop stuff for free. So it's, now it makes the subscription more, more attractive.
Exactly. And I'm glad you mentioned that. I was going to say that, people tell me, well, I don't want to use a different contacts app, but you don't have to choose. I even talk about that in my little video review, because exactly what you said, Jeff, is that the CardHop app works on top of the contacts already on your phone. So you're not having to put them in two different places or separate them. So anyway, I just underscore your comment again. Try it out. If it's something that you've had an issue with, like organizing your contacts, this is a great way to kind of look at that. Okay, so the last thing, you had a great link. I know that Federighi, again from Mac Stories, talked about he went to this new store. Where is this in Rome?
In Rome,
Actually,
what a beautiful store.
incredible. I mean, just some of the pictures that he put on here, which all, by the way, I think he puts in here, were all taken on the iPhone 12 Pro Max. But just incredible that they restored this. I mean, you and I have been to many Apple stores, right? We can talk about some of our favorites in just a moment, but it's amazing how Apple went in and they restored this. Like, there were stories, I think you mentioned in here, they like painstakingly recreated and repainted all of the pictures and paintings on the ceiling.
It's like a museum quality restoration. And what makes it even better, Brett, he mentioned this in this great article that most recently, before it was an Apple store, this incredibly historic building was being used for fast food. So you can imagine it was just like a horrible use of the space, and the building was in disrepair, and it was not really doing for anyone who's a fan of history and architecture, it was just a disservice. But now, I mean, like that picture you're showing now, this beautiful hallway with the marble.
Look at that.
This is Apple stores are interesting because you have your run of the mill mall stores, which are so useful because you can get what you need. But then they have these flagship stores that are often beautiful. I mean, and Apple knows that they're creating a space. They want the space to be so nice and inviting that people just gather there just to meet and talk. And of course, Apple is happy if while you're there, you decide to buy something. I'm sure they're happy to sell it to you. But this was just a beautiful, this was it looks like it's one of the nicest renovations that Apple has done for an Apple store.
I like what he says here. If you struggle to believe that this is an Apple store, you're not alone.
Yeah,
but
you need to look at these pictures.
This reminds me. I don't know if you've been. My favorite iconic Apple store is the one on Fifth Avenue, right? The glass block, and I love that, and that's wonderful. But when they opened the store in the Grand Central Station, right? Everybody knows Grand Central, but it's the same thing that you were just talking about. I'm sure Grand Central, of course, has had many heydays throughout several decades. And it was the same thing. It was kind of not really in disrepair, but it was being used for like fast food courts. But I just remember walking up the steps and thinking to myself, the history of these marble staircases, the amazing architecture in here. And Apple didn't take anything away from that or even add to it. I mean, yeah, they had a few posters and everything up, but they didn't take away from the grandeur of Grand Central Station. And that's similar to what I was thinking of when I was looking through some of these pictures here.
Yeah, I love Apple has some great stores in New York City. When after Hurricane Katrina, because I live in New Orleans, I was displaced and I lived up there for about 8 months. And I remember when I first moved up there, in fact, my birthday's in November. And so for my birthday, we went to the Apple store in Soho, which has one of those fabulous glass staircases that are so striking. Yeah. And I remember this would have been like November of 2005. And I remember purchasing there an iPod with it was the first video iPod, which had a screen that was not much bigger than a postage stamp. But I remember actually using it to watch videos because I just love being able to sit on the couch and hold something in my hand and watch. I think I was watching episodes of Lost at the time on it, which is funny. And then so while I was living there in early 2006, when they opened up the one that you talked about, the Apple store on Fifth Avenue with that iconic glass cube, I was actually there. I mean, I was living in New York. I had time. So I showed up early on opening day, and there were hundreds, so many people online, and there were all these celebrities that were there. And then of course there were tech celebrities, people that like David Pogue, who at the time was writing for the New York Times, and people like that I had a chance to talk to and meet. It was a fun opening day there. So that's a great store. But and then like you say, I want to say in 2011 they opened up the one in Grand Central, and that's a great store too. And I've been there many times, both because I needed something when I was in New York, and it's sometimes you often find yourself in Grand Central because it's such a hub for the subway system, but also just because they did such a beautiful renovation there. It's really nice.
This is
another one is, I'm sure since you and I go to ABA Tech Show in Chicago, you must have been to the beautiful one on Michigan Avenue in Chicago. I guess they used to have one in Michigan, and then did they add to it or change it? Now they have the beautiful one on the river, which that is a beautiful store.
Yeah, let me see if I can bring up a picture on this because it is amazing. Here it is, beautiful. And you're looking at it from across the river, like the river is right in front of it, and you got this glass cube on this. And it's just great because you can't really tell from this picture, but the top of it is like the lid of a MacBook Air.
It does look like the lid of a laptop. And I'm sure that was intentional by the architects.
I'm absolutely. Although I remember like when it first came out that, it's a Chicago, right? So the first winter, there was like snow and ice that would build up on top of it. And because you can see it's got this little curvature, they had signs around, Jeff, where they would say, "Watch out for falling ice." Right? I mean, I'm sure they fixed that, but it's just kind of funny. But yeah, that's amazing. And so many. Every time I've gone there, there's always been people sitting right there in the middle, where they just kind of sit and, like you said, they just congregate, and they just kind of, I guess you just want to be with your people, right? You just want to kind of sit there and take in the idea, like everybody here is here to be using a Mac or an iPad or an iPhone. It's anyway, that's a lot of fun.
One more thing I'll say about these Apple stores is we've been talking about the grand ones, the ones that are really beautiful, but just your local Apple store. If you're lucky enough to live in a city that has one, we have a small one here in one of the suburbs of New Orleans called Metairie, and it's just so nice to have a place that if you need to buy something, you can get it. But if you need help, I've always found their Genius bars are so helpful. And I feel like, sometimes you walk into a store and you can tell that the people there are working on commission. They're trying to upsell you and everything. The Apple store is, and it has been since day one, the opposite of that. They're just there to help you. I can't tell you the number of times that I've had a minor issue with an Apple device, and and maybe it's not even in warranty, and they're like, "Well, let me just give you a new one." And you're like, "Really? You're just gonna swap it out with a new one?" They're like, "Yeah, that's fine. We'll just give you a new one." And I mean, there's so many times that they've gone above and beyond to delight that I love the experience of having an Apple store. They can be chaotic because they're so busy sometimes, and the one that's supposed to be is not nearly as big as some of these mega stores that you're showing on your screen right now. But Apple, I think, has really done a great job with these stores. They've now been around for a long time, and it's if you don't have one in your hometown, it's a shame, because it's nice to have one.
It is, and I just quickly, I have long told lawyers that are looking either to get into a Mac or when the iPhone first came out or the iPad, just having an understanding of where your Apple store, closest Apple store, because I got to tell you, I've gone here. Here's my local one. It's called Eaton. It's here in the Cleveland suburbs, and it's the same thing. They actually have a little room in the back. I've gone in several times, presented for like the business group that's there, Jeff, and that's just been great. And every time almost there are lawyers that are there either because they have a little problem and they just need somebody to kind of walk them through. It's almost like built-in tech support, especially if you're a smaller firm or something like that. Anyway, that's just great. I'm glad.
Right, you have a choice of 3 different Apple stores close to where you live.
Well, some of them are a little further away. I know. It's good. And I don't want to say that I'm ashamed, because I just enjoy it so much for all the reasons you're talking about. Like, I just go and walk around. Like, the people know me sometimes there. But like when the kids were small, I used to take them there for Saturday morning, right? For mommy time, right?
Oh, I totally did that too.
Okay, good. Okay, I figured you would. And the kids would just sit on those little, balls that they had where they could play on the iPad, and Daddy would just have its little time, like walking around. And sometimes I would just do tech support for people when the geniuses weren't there. Okay, I probably shouldn't have done that, but anyway, it was just a lot of fun. Okay, let's do our quick tips. I know this is great because I always enjoy talking with you. Let me do my quick tip real quick. I'm going to bring this up. I think this was in this for this to work. What I'm going to show you, you have to have at least an iPhone 12 or an iPhone 12 Max on there. This is the Measure app, which has been around for a while. You don't have to have an iPhone 12 to use the Measure app. So what this is part of using this LiDAR scanner. I've used this several times when we've gone and bought like a piece of furniture or something, Jeff, that you could go and you literally do exactly what it's showing here. You put a frame of reference on one corner, and then you pull the camera across, and you can get a fairly good, accurate measurement of something that you're looking at. Cool. I love doing that for a lot of stuff. But if you do have an iPhone 12 and you have this advanced camera, one of the other things that you can do, in addition to just taking a measurement of like a physical object, even a rectangle, by the way, you could actually measure a person's height. It's crazy. I've been doing this on my kids, and now they keep telling me to stop telling them to stand, somewhere. But I love this. I mean, we just like everybody else, we have like, the door frame where we've marked them over the years, how tall they are. But I just love this idea because in fact, I think it's a little bit helpful that it's good to have, a picture of your kids on there just in case, you need to give some kind of a report. Here's another little picture I was going to show you. This is what it looks like when you are doing this. Somebody has to stand up, and you simply just point the little camera, the Measure app, at this person, and it literally gives you a fairly accurate height measurement. So that's like a little hidden thing inside the Measure app, which, by the way, not only will it do measure, it will also has a little balance. What am I trying to say there? So you can figure out if it's something that is a straight line.
Oh yeah,
level.
Like a level.
It's a level. That's what I'm trying to say. Anyway, the Measure app, it comes with iOS. It's already built into your phone and your iPad. But if you got an iPhone 12, it does a little bit of extra, which I think is great.
Yeah, and you are praising the app, the feature of doing measurements.
Yes.
But let's not forget that this is a subset of the technology of augmented reality, of your iPhone and your iPad, understanding the world around you and doing things with them. People talked about, is Apple working on, glasses that they'll come out with in the future, something like that. Apple is clearly really building up its technology on doing things with the world around them. And will it be a part of a car in the future, or glasses or something else? I feel like 5-10 years from now, we're going to look back and say, oh, remember that Measure app? Little did we know that was just like the beginning, that was just a taste of what was coming.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
Exactly. Great point. I love it. All right. What do you have for us today?
The one that I was going to recommend is if you have an Apple Arcade subscription, which is the one that gives you all of the games, right? I have it. Well, frankly, I have it because I have the Apple One subscription. It's the pay one price, and you get all of the Apple stuff, Apple Music and Apple TV Plus and a bunch of the services. But so I'm not paying extra for Apple Arcade, but my two kids love playing some of the games, and I play one or two of them too. I'm not a big game person, but there's a new one that came out this week called Song Pop Party, SONGPOP Party.
I like it.
This one appeals to me. So basically what it is name that tune. Using your iPhone or your iPad, you choose a genre, which can be a decade, like, the 80s or the 90s
that's
or the 60s, or it can be a type of like, country music or mixtapes or something. And once you choose a genre, then you choose within that a specific playlist, for a particular year, or like in the 1980s, they have like, hair bands and, punk rock and things like that. And so then the way the game works is you get into a room, there's an arena mode where there's 4 other people on the internet that you don't know. You just see their not their real name, but the name for Apple. And, one of those, so you know that you're going to be competing within the genre, like let's say the 1980s, but you don't know if it's your playlist that's going to be picked, love songs or whatever, or somebody else's playlist. And then once you get on there, this like a clip of the song comes up, and as quickly as possible, you have to press one of 4 buttons that corresponds to either the artist or the title of the song. And it's really fun. I mean, if you enjoy music, and, sometimes I will be like, oh my goodness, I haven't heard the song in forever, and it's so fun to play the game. And then as over time, you get points that you can use to unlock more playlists and stuff. It's fun. I've really enjoyed playing the game this week. In fact, I don't even review games very often on iPhone JD. I may make an exception for this one in the next week or two, because it's really fun. And I'll say one more thing about Brett.
Yes,
I have, as I've been playing the game, because like each round has 10 different songs in it. I have finished the game and thought to myself, wow, that third song, I have not thought about that song in so long. And so I created a playlist in Apple Music on my phone that I've called Song Pop Mix. And it's just like songs that I've been reminded of through this game, so when I know that after I've played it for a week or two, I'm going to have like this playlist of like 30 good songs. And the next time I just want to put on some good music, I'll just play that playlist. I was like, oh yeah, look at this. This is a fantastic song that I don't think about that much. Goodness. So if you enjoy music, I encourage you to check it out.
I have to say, I don't have Arcade yet, but I have played either this one or it's something similar. And
they have a similar version that's not part of Apple Arcade, right?
Okay. Which either way you go, it is a blast. I mean, my wife she is very knowledgeable in 80s music. I'm not really exactly sure why, but she loves doing the trivia, right? Name that tune kind of a thing. But now the kids love it. They're into the K-pop and everything else too. But it is a fun thing to do with the family, I have to say. So I'm so glad you brought this up. And especially if you have Arcade.
I mentioned the arena mode where you play with other people on the internet. There's also a mode where you can play with people which is what you're talking about.
Right.
I haven't done that yet. Great. I'll probably do it this weekend for Memorial Day, since we have some time together as a family. Although picking a genre of music that would be fair to me, my wife, my 9th grade, going on 10th grade son, and my 7th one, that I don't even know what genre is going to be fair for all of us. I might just I might pick the 1960s just to be unfair, so that my wife and I can win, and they have no chance. And they'll try to pick
reggae, right? They'll pick something that nobody knows.
They're going to pick songs that have come out in the last 10 years, and I'm going to lose horribly. But
oh my goodness, that's great. Jeff, thank you so much. Again, this is always so fun talking with you for In the News. We thank everybody for listening. Jeff, thanks again. We'll see you next week.
Bye-bye. See you next week.